Thanks, Khalees. Yes, my name's Tony. I'm a solutions engineer, part of the emerging products team, predominantly focused on Consul here at HashiCorp. And I have Yulei with me, who will speak about Vault and show us a demo of HCP Vault shortly after as well. So thanks everyone for joining. Before we dive into HCP, Consul, and Vault, let's first talk about the underlying platform. HashiCorp Cloud Platform, or HCP, is the underlying managed service platform that we built for our tools. But why did we build this platform? Well, what we're seeing are three common themes and asks from our customers. Right, first, there's difficulty with getting up and running with cloud infrastructure tools. Secondly, there's ongoing challenges of managing these tools and can be difficult or costly for organizations. We often see as scale increases, so does complexity. And third, there are different workflows for each cloud platform as well. The vision and why we built this platform, we built this platform with three principles in mind. First, easy to deploy, push of a button style deployments. Users can create an account and launch it all from the dashboard. There's also an API and a Terraform provider as well, right? We want to remove the operational burden and provide a fully managed services for our tools. And finally, the goal is to create a seamless workflow deploying our tools on any cloud. Today, you're going to see us specifically on AWS, but as we add more clouds, the experience will be the same. So I'm going to jump into HCP Consul here. But first, some of you may be familiar, some of you may not be familiar with Consul. So what is Consul? At its core, Consul is a service networking solution that enables organizations to discover and connect application and services. And it does this by maintaining what we call a shared registry or a service registry. And this registry provides a real-time up-to-date list of services that are deployed in your environment. It also keeps and tracks the health of them. I'm going to cover some of the primary use cases at a high level, but please reach out to us if you want to understand them in depth or how they can help your organization. We do have some events that will dive deeper into this topic. For example, trust nothing and then securely connect any service. And also we have a virtual workshop on multi-cloud service networking, which is hands-on and is a few hours in length. So again, we'll put some links at the end of this webinar on how to register for them. So knowing that Consul can discover and secure and connect any service in your environment, let's have a look at some of the fundamental use cases, and I'll cover 4 of them today. So question we want to ask is, do I know what services are running on my network and are they healthy in real time? Now, this becomes challenging when we have a mixture of traditional workloads, monolithic, virtual machine-based workloads, but also more importantly, as you scale and re-platform, and move to more dynamic workloads like microservices, or even consume cloud-native services like RDS. How do you keep track of all these services, right? So Consul acts like a service registry and it tracks information around it. It is the central source of truth for all applications. As soon as an application comes online, they register themselves with Consul, and Consul monitors the health with them. That monitors the health of them in real time, right? So this has great benefits and drives other use cases, right? But this is essentially the core. One of the use cases that is kind of next to that is, once these new services are available, how do we scale them without, operator intervention? So the first use case is around driving automation with this registry, because Consul is aware of these services based on events, whether this is new services appearing online or being removed or health. This can trigger and execute Terraform code. And again, usual benefits with automating with Terraform, like risk of misconfiguration or reducing that risk of misconfiguration. And there's different levels of maturity that this can adapt to, right? So, that's the first one. It's about achieving repeatable application deployment life cycles without kind of user intervention or traditional user-based ticket approaches, right? as we move along, service-to-service communication, the question is often asked, is service-to-service communication authorized and encrypted? Does it have identity? Is it allowed to talk to other services? So based off the registry, we drive a fully, enterprise service mesh, which connects and secures traditional workloads like EC2, modern microservices, and even external cloud services like RDS. With that, we can help users and app dev teams implement traffic management policies based on identity to facilitate different, other principles, right? Things like canary releases, blue, green, and so forth. These involve the use of traffic shifting rules. But again, there's a big security element to this as well. With service mesh, do we allow certain services to communicate? Is web allowed to talk to app, for example? So yeah. And finally, how do we control the flow of traffic in and out of our network, right? So Consul has the ability to function as an API gateway. You can think of this as our enhanced ingress gateway capabilities. So traditionally, Consul service mesh solves a lot of east to west patterns. You can think of this as now solving north to south and east to west. So a lot of benefit there, right? We can talk about different patterns. Again, I won't go too much in depth. We'll spend a little bit more time on HCP Consul, and I'll have a demo coming up as well. So again, when we focus on HCP of Consul, the goal is to make it seamless and simple to start, in this example with AWS workloads, right? Through these use cases, what we can expect is, again, reduced operational burden on employees, improved productivity, and really time to value for Consul, right? It's about reducing the risk around security. So we secure everything by default out of the box with HCP Consul. It's also fully managed, maintained, and monitored by our SREs, right, with defined SLAs. So you're going to see very quickly how we can stand up some things shortly. So what do you get? Again, like I mentioned, everything is secure by default. So there's a deny rule policy. So services can't just talk to each other when they're part of HCP Consul. Rules need to be in place. But also everything is encrypted. So any service that wants to talk to another service, there's identity. That identity needs to be verified. At the same time, they need to be mutually authenticated as well. So there's MTLS as well. With this, we simplify the management of networking as well, especially for microservices. There's improved observability and traffic management, like I spoke about before, and different patterns. Really helps, Consul really helps organizations monitor and track any service running in their environment, by creating this centralized catalog and providing real-time health data. So the goal, again, is to really get running really quickly, right? And there's really only a few elements to it, right? So this all sounds great so far around HCP Consul and what that deal is, but how do you actually get started? So it's actually really simple. First is, you create an HCP account. From there, you can create a cluster. You can connect a HVN, which is a HashiCorp virtual network. So it's essentially a VPC on our side. And we peer that with an AWS VPC on your side, right? To establish the console, the communication or connectivity, right? Then we deploy Consul clients to either EC2 workloads, ECS workloads, or EKS workloads. So I'm going to go through a quick demo. I'm actually going to make this even easier than these steps, right? So I'm going to actually consolidate and actually give you a demo of creating HCP Consul from scratch, from nothing. We're going to deploy the Consul control plane, what we call it, the cluster. We're also going to deploy an EKS workload and the Consul client. So, in about 15 or so minutes, what you have is, a fully fledged Consul deployment with EKS and an application on top, fully service mesh enabled, fully secure. And then we can start thinking about use cases, how to apply different traffic patterns if we need to, or if your organization has those requirements, right? So let me switch over and give you a view of what HCP looks like. Right, so let me just quickly refresh that. All right. So when you log into HCP, when you sign up, you can sign up with your GitHub account. You do get some free credits as well to start straight away. You can see there's a number of services already. I actually do have a Consul cluster running already, but what I'm going to do is I'll show you that in a little bit. What I'm going to show you is how to set up an environment with, you can either choose EKS, EC2, or ECS, but deploy it all using Terraform, right? Again, so this is going to deploy even the AWS VPC if you wanted to, right? You can use an existing one, but we have the option to deploy a new one as well. So it's also going to set up the peering as well. So let me do this now. I am going to select Sydney because that's where I'm based. So that's the HCP region and this is the VPC region. So obviously we want to keep them close when possible. The way we authenticate with HCP if we're using Terraform is through the service principal and key. We can generate one here or you can use our existing one. I will just generate one here for the sake of simplicity. I'm going to copy that and I am just going to continue. This is the Terraform code here. So by populating some of these inputs, whether you're using an existing VPC or UVPC or you select, EC2, that's going to create the Terraform configuration for you, right? So I'll copy that code in a little bit. So what I'll do now is just go to my Visual Studio. I am just going to export those keys in there. And then I'm just going to go back here and I'm just going to copy this Terraform code. Right. Cool. Just going to save that code. Okay, I won't go through the details of the code today. Again, once you sign up, you can have a look, but it is all pretty straightforward here. We are, in this case, you can see here, I have a few things, EKS module because I selected EKS. These are specific, or these resources are specific to the HCP provider. Let's go ahead and actually deploy this. So I'm just going to run a Terraform init to initialize it. All right. Okay, now I'll just do a Terraform apply. And yes. All right, and this will actually start deploying now my environment. So at the end of that deployment, again, it should take about 15 minutes or so. I will have a Consul cluster stood up on HCP, managed by us, managed by HashiCorp. It will create a new VPC and it'll create a new EKS cluster. It will deploy Consul clients onto the EKS cluster and it will be fully enabled for service mesh, right? So let me show you a working example that I've deployed earlier. So if I go back, you can see this is the one I deployed earlier. It is running at the moment. You can see a little bit of version, the region, and so forth. If you go into it, you can see a little bit more detail around it as well, right? The good thing about HCP is when you log in, there's a lot of tutorials as well and to walk you through that process and some information, right? This is actually Consul itself. Up and running. So this is at the end of that deployment. What you have is Consul up and running here. You have a sample application. This is optional. You have a sample application called HashiCups, which is this application here where you can buy some coffee and put in, some mock credit card details. But you'll get a sample app as well to see how that is running. There's an ingress gateway as well that I spoke about where you can leverage some of our API capabilities as well. You can see all these services that are registered here. They're in mesh with the proxy. I haven't done any configuration, but you do get additional telemetry if you want to configure dashboards and so forth. You can see the instance details and so forth, and you can see all the health checks as well. Now, I won't go through that there, but you can see I also have my intentions or my security policies. This was done as part of the application deployments. So intentions are service-to-service permissions. They can be layer 7 aware, or they can be as simple as defining what service can talk to what service. In this case, they're managed by CRD, but with Consul, you can drive everything through Terraform, through the API or CLI as well, right? But again, just a quick way to stand up an environment and get going really quick, that push button style deployment, right? That is really it about the demo that I wanted to show. Just a quick way to get running really fast. You can see that one is starting to correct now. And again, this will probably be finished by the end of the webinar, right? Because Consul, again, is kind of platform agnostic, you can create EC2 and ECS as well, right? And leverage all those benefits that a service mesh does or has. I might stop here and have a look at handing it over to Yulei. Any questions, I'll be online and speak on the chat on.
All right, Tony, shall I share my screen?
Yeah, let me stop sharing. Thanks.
All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name is Yulei. I'm a solutions engineer from HashiCorp. I'm based in Sydney. So we're going to talk a little bit about HCP Vault and maybe show you a very simple demo case where you can connect your HCP Vault to an existing VPC and have one of your EC2 instance, for example, authenticate against the HCP Vault using its own identity. Again, just a little bit of highlights of the benefit. We do hear from customers that setting up a Vault is complicated, managing Vault is complicated, and we want to take that burden away from you. So that's why HCP exists. So we will have a push button deployment where you can select the different sizes of Vault and different SLAs and the kind of machines, the EC2 that's running the Vault. And then you can set up the VPC pairing so that you then get access to it. So without further ado, let's jump into the code and have a look. Now, what I have is, as a start of HCP, the first thing you need to do is to set up some HVN, that's HashiCorp Virtual Networks. In your virtual network, you can basically specify where do you want to have your HashiCorp virtual network to stay, which region, and their CIDR blocks. Once you have that, then you have ability to pair it with a existing your existing VPC, either via VPC pairing or transit gateway. So in our demo, we're actually having a VPC pairing example. Once you have that VPC pairing set up, your workload will then be able to communicate with the Vault. You can then provision a Vault. So in our case, so for example, you could say, I want to create a Vault cluster. You can select the different size. So in our case, it would be a development Vault. So I would say test Vault. You can then select which network you want this to be in. Let's say I want it to be something, and whether you want to allow public connection or just a private. In most of the case, for production workload, it would be from your own network. But for demo purposes, you could just allow public connection. As you can see, the price is really low. It's like 4 cents per hour. So you can just start your development or starter Vault really, really cheap, really, really easy. Once you push the button, the cluster will be created. Sorry. So it will take a little bit of time to start up that vault, but I do have a vault cluster that's already provisioned. So let's continue here. So once you have that cluster created, you can see that the settings and when it was created and stuff like that. And you can then say access the vault. You will have some information, say, for example, where's your vault? Right? In this case, you would have a vault address, and you can generate your token as well. And then you will be able to use that vault instantly. So it's fairly fast. To set up your VPC pairing, just one moment, let me go back. To set up your VPC pairing, you can find on our website how to pair your VPC with HCP. It's relatively easy, but what I have here is I have some examples. So instead of clicking through everything, obviously, you know, HashiCorp is the inventor of Terraform. We can do it via Terraform. So I'm going to walk through some of the codes. So I defined two providers, that's HCP and AWS. So I create a HCP network. I create a vault cluster. And I ask for an admin token. This token will depend on the cluster. Once the cluster is built, we'll ask for an admin token. And then this is how you actually do it on the other end. So you need to say, for example, you create an AWS VPC, and then you request a HCP AWS network pairing, right, by providing that VPC ID and account ID. And then you accept the VPC pairing. And obviously, you also need to define a route so that the traffic from your network, from your HashiCorp virtual network knows where to go to find your VPC. So that's all on the HashiCorp side, on the HCP side. On the other end, once you have your VPC, you then need to say, for example, add an internet gateway to your VPC or transit gateway, depends on your situation. You then define your traffic route. Say, for example, in this case, I'm saying that for all my HCP CIDR block, I want it to go to the VPC pairing connection. And then associate this table, route table to my subnet. Then the rest becomes easy. I then create my a VPC. Let's say create an EC2 instance. Let me scroll down. I create a EC2 instance that's inside that subnet. Now, once that EC2 instance is established, I will be able to actually have routes that's ready to go. So here is my VPC instance. So once I have my VPC instance, the easiest way for people to authenticate with Vault is to use your cloud identity instead of any other identity. So in this case, we have configured our Vault agent. It's assumed that you have some working knowledge of Vault. Let's say we have a Vault agent configured here. What we are doing is we want to use Vault, like we want to use this private Vault that we just provisioned. And we want to use AWS authentication method to authenticate ourselves against a Vault role that's defined here. And once I can authenticate, I want to create my token into a local file. So let's see, the command is this. So if we run this Vault agent, obviously it doesn't have any complaint. Seems like it's authenticated and created the token. So let's log in to Vault using the token. And from here, we can see that Vault can log in from this file. Let's have a look at these contents. You can see the token. So Vault can log into Vault using that private link, the private address, and we can log in, and we have got a policy. And through this policy, we can actually do some. Just one moment. Vault command, say we can read some secrets. And these are the secrets we actually get from HashiCorp, the VPC, the Vault we just created. Now, so far, I've demonstrated that how would you create a VPC, a VPN, and pairing it with your VPC, and add some routing tables, create a Vault cluster, do some configuration, and on your end, we've provisioned a EC2 instance, and that EC2 instance can authenticate with HCP Vault using its IAM profile, IAM instance profile. And we have demonstrated that agent can actually read some secrets as well. I'm going to pause here and see if we have any questions.